Hi everybody, my name is Brady and I'm a 19th century American historian, and we are back with another React video, and today we're going to be doing more Nella. We have creative weapons of the medieval era, which should be fun. I don't know that much about the Middle Ages. I took one course on it, ever, and I passed, but I didn't do super well, I'll just say that much. I studied to the test. I studied just enough so I would know enough to pass the test, and then right after that, all the information went out the other end. So I'm not going to claim to be any sort of an authority on this stuff, but it should be fun. If we're talking about weaponry, the medieval era seems like a fun time to go into. There were, I'm sure, a decent amount of innovations. So this should be cool. And, of course, the Middle Ages has a terrible reputation for being, like, unnecessarily cruel at times. Just a little bit extra. As far as creative weapons go, I imagine these are going to be very extra. So this should be fun. Let's get it started.
Hey kids, when most
He
people
knows that
think
music.
of the Middle Ages, they think of them as being like humanity's dumb teenage years, where all we did was play harpsichord in our room and burn heretics with our friends. But that's not entirely true. In fact, I would argue that the medieval era saw just as much genius as any other period in time. It's just most of that genius went towards finding new and creative ways to brutally slaughter those you disagree with.
You know what? Genius is relative. I mean, we can look down on this now, knowing what we know now. I mean, it doesn't make that period any more absolutely insane here. But yeah, genius is absolutely relative to the time. And you can't doubt that some of the creations they had were certainly innovative for the time. So I can't take that away. And there are some great thinkers that come in every single period. So, like, I'm not going to write it off. I get it. I've studied enough history to know not to write off any period of history. It's all cool. Just some of it happens to appeal to me more than others. I just happen to end up with 19th century America, but it could have easily been anywhere else.
Here's a few highlights. First, we'll talk about the werewolf. So, as you can imagine, medieval castles were not easy to break into. They were basically like those jungle gym things at Chuck E. Cheese's. Massive in size, intentionally confusing layout, security everywhere, and by the end of your visit, you'd probably end up with some kind of disease. So
that is something that I've not been exposed to. Being from America, our historical monuments are a little bit different. I would love to visit an old castle. I think that would be a really cool time if I ever get to Europe. And I don't travel all that much personally, so who knows if I'll even get around to it. But if I do, that is definitely something on my list. There's so much, I guess history is so much different from the American perspective because we are such a relatively young country. We got to skip over a lot of stuff because you have people from Europe coming over here with whatever stage of development they happen to be at, and they just move forward from there in like slightly different directions or whatever. So the US, we kind of miss out on some of the stuff that Europe had.
in order to help penetrate fortresses, medieval armies would often utilize siege weapons, one of the most popular of which was the Trebuchet. Now, this device is interesting enough on its own, but it gets better. So, around 1300 AD, King Edward I of England was in the process of invading Scotland. However, one fortress known as Stirling Castle was giving him a lot of trouble. He laid siege to the building for many months without any real progress. Then one day, he woke up and had a revelation. Hey guys, listen, why are we wasting our time building all these regular-sized trebuchets when we could just build one giant one and call it a day?
I mean, why not? That's You know what I've always wondered? What is the difference between a trebuchet and a catapult? And I actually think I'm going to look that up right now. Because I think that's worth knowing for me. These are little things that I kind of take for granted. I look at that and I'm just like, yeah, that's a trebuchet, but like, what's the difference between that and a catapult? So let's see what we've got here. So difference between trebuchet and catapult. Here we go. A catapult is any device that throws an object, although it commonly refers to a medieval weapon. Trebuchets are a type of catapult. Okay, using gravity with a counterweight or traction, people pulling it down, to propel the arm and often employing a sling at the end of the arm for greater distance. Okay, so a trebuchet is a kind of catapult. So to compare the two, it's like comparing an apple with fruit. Okay, that makes way more sense now. I always wondered about that, but they have, it seems they have different kinds of catapults here. Okay, very cool. Very fun, very fun. All right, let's go back to the video. I've gone on a bit of a journey so far. That was fun.
So that's what he did. This gargantuan war machine was known as the War Wolf and stood at around 6 stories tall. To give a bit of perspective, this is about as tall as King Kong was in his largest film depiction. So basically, picture a giant fucking ape launching boulders like they're baseballs, and you've got a pretty good idea of what the War Wolf was capable of. It was so intimidating that when the Scots saw the English constructing the beast outside the castle, they immediately surrendered out of fear. But
so he was just like the first person to think like, yeah, we have them, but let's just make them bigger. I mean, I guess somebody had to be the first to think of that, but still. I mean, I don't know if he was the one who actually thought about it. Maybe it was one of his people. I honestly don't know. Medieval warfare is kind of hard to follow. I know that, or at least I'm under the impression that the leaders were a little bit more hands-on given the scale of things, but I don't know at all. It's all gonna end with I don't know, because I don't know.
But then Edward was like, fuck that, I'm gonna test this bad boy out, and proceeded to take pot shots on the castle anyway.
What a
Another
dick.
devious product of the Middle Ages was a flammable substance known as Greek fire. Contrary to popular belief, Greek fire was not invented by the ancient Greeks. Rick Riordan, you lying prick. It was actually invented in the 7th century AD by the Byzantines, who happened to inhabit Greece at the time. Historians still don't...
Well, okay, if they happen to inhabit Greece at the time, I give them a little bit of leeway there. If somebody's making a particular claim that it was like just Greece, I guess it's the Byzantine time. You got to make distinctions. It's important. There's a reason the term Byzantine even exists, because we need to make distinctions. And okay, I get it. Never mind. Whatever.
Don't know exactly what it was made of, but they do know that it acted a lot like napalm, sticking to ships, sticking to people,
We don't know.
floating and continuing to burn on the surface of the water. The Byzantines also had these siphon-like tubes that they'd put on the front of their boats to pour Greek fire on the enemy, kind of like makeshift flamethrower.
That's
These
kinda
were
dope.
retired pretty quickly, though, mostly because when you put the words makeshift and flamethrower next to each other, you're bound to run into some problems eventually. Our next bright idea comes from a woman known as Olga of Kiev. So Olga was a princess who ruled the area around the capital of modern-day Ukraine from 945 to 963 AD, and she had quite a track record for being just a total badass. For example, the
really?
Trebuchets, a tribe of people under Kiev's control, once sent 20 men to Kiev in order to convince Olga to marry their prince, under the pretense that if they did marry, the prince could claim her rule over Kiev. In response, she had all 20 of them buried alive. She then sent a letter to the prince saying she accepted his proposal, but she would need a bunch of his most distinguished governors to escort her on the journey. Once the men showed up, Olga was like, "Hey guys, long journey, huh? How'd you like to take a bath in this here bathhouse?" They were like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." "Okay, have fun, you guys."
Is this going to be a gas chamber, basically? That's all I can assume that this is building up to. Is this like the first gas chamber? Let's see. Oh no, she sets it on fire. Okay.
Man, it's like a sauna in here. It is a sauna, dipshit. You have a point. So long story short, this lady just did not
Okay.
give a heck. My favorite story about her starts with her besieging a Trevlian city that refused to pay tribute to her. The people in the city were already well aware of the type of rampaging that Olga was capable of, so they were already scared shitless. But when she showed up, she was like, "Alright, you know what guys, I'm gonna play nice. Just bring me 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each household and I'll be on my way."
Birds!
Okay. What are they for exactly? We're just hungry. I mean,
Don't
we got
you
some
dare.
food too. We could just give... I'm sorry, did I fucking stutter? Alright, birds it is. Then, once the creatures were in Olga's hands, she had each of her soldiers tie a cloth-bound piece of sulfur to one of the birds' feet, which was then set alight. The birds were then released all at once, and when they flew back into the city, their nests acted like little piles of tinder, resulting in nearly every house in the entire city erupting in flames simultaneously. And while the whole...
That actually makes me sad. I've become so sensitive to birds. I can't even see like a dead one in the road anymore without genuinely getting upset. Aw. It's kind of badass, though. I will say that much. Like, these little things, when, especially, not even just here, when you get into, like, the more, like, ancient world, now I'm starting to learn a little bit more about, like, old Roman history and stuff, and I'm exploring some of the extra history stuff, some of those videos that I've been watching lately. The creativity is on, like, a different level. I mean, I know what we have right now is very impressive. It's the culmination of so much work and innovative thought. However, just seeing people, like, tie things to animals and just send them out somewhere, something about that is so appealing to me. Because this is not the first time I've seen this. It's the first time I've seen this specific example, but the strategy of tying something to an animal and just sending them somewhere to cause mayhem. Like, it's kind of great.
The whole place burned to the ground. Olga just sat and watched. By the way, it's worth mentioning that after her death, Olga was canonized as a Catholic saint, presumably around the same time as Saint Tiffany, who went around pushing in the soft spots of babies, and Saint Jerry the goat fucker, who, as the name implies, fucked a lot of goats.
That's not real.
In conclusion, pay your taxes.
No way, that's not real. They're That's kind of funny, though. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people got canonized that probably shouldn't have. That's probably an amazing part of history to get into. I know this one guy who's like really, and he's not one of my professors or anything. I could always go to one of them, but I know this one guy who's really into this stuff. I'm gonna have to ask him about this video because he always has something. Like I took my Middle Ages course with him, and I always think of him every time I go back to the subject, because he just got absolute delight in the subject, and I don't know how you can be happy with Middle Ages stuff, because like it's deeply depressing, but so isn't all of history, I guess.
To my loyal subscribers, I'll see you in 3 months. I'm Sam and Nella, and thank you for watching.
Kidding, but maybe not kidding. I hope Salmonella's doing alright. He hasn't put out a new video since I started my channel. Well, since I started putting out videos on my channel. So that makes me kind of sad. I hope he's doing alright, and I hope he comes back soon. Because, like, his stuff is very good. And anybody who tries to make history and education fun, and if you can make it a little bit edgy, all the better. I really like that. I would love to see more of this, because I'm sure this subject has a lot more you could go into here. This is probably only scratching the surface. But yeah, that was very cool. If there's anything else from like the Middle Ages you guys want me to check out, it's not typically a thing I would cover, but this seems like a good place to solicit videos like that. Yeah, I wouldn't mind learning a little bit more about it. This was fun. So like this video if you like this video, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.